the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
All right, Landon, this is a really good question from Derek. He wants to know, how would you compare Patrick Surtain, the top cornerback in this year's class, compared to some of the other top cornerbacks that we've seen drafted recently with Jeff Okudah in 2020, Jalen Ramsey in 2016, Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward. Where does he finish among those guys?
That's a good question. I tend to think that he's probably similar, if not right above Okudah, right? Probably below Ramsey and above Ward as well.
Oh,
so I would rank
better than Ward. See, I think that's interesting.
I think I would rank Ramsey, Surtain. I mean, as far as prospects coming out, I mean, because that's the problem is that because the problem is that like if you're adding in all the NFL stuff now, but I would say Ramsey, Surtain, Okudah, Ward probably.
See, I think I would go Ramsey, Ward, and then it's tough between Surtain and Okudah. Last year, Jeff Okudah was just so by the consensus was easily the top corner in the class. And by most people, boards like a top 5 pick at worst. And is it just because this draft is better, or do we actually believe that Surtain is a better prospect than Okudah?
I think Surtain is as good a prospect as Okudah. I mean, I think
what makes it better in your mind?
I think there's more experience. I think he just seems to play with a little bit. I think Okudah might be a little bit more of an athlete, but I think that Surtain plays with a little bit more headiness than Okudah does. Not that Okudah's. I mean, again, we're comparing 2 top 5 cornerbacks, so it's like it's tough to parse them. But I think that I would think that Surtain's a little bit more scheme versatile, because I think he can do a little bit more. I think Okudah is probably maybe a tick better as a pure press man corner, right? But I think that as far as like overall skill, versatility, football intelligence, I think Surtain's got a little bit more of that than Okudah does. And I think that Okudah and Surtain are a lot similar athletes than I think probably people anticipated before some of the pro day testing came out.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. I'm fine with saying Surtain is better than Okudah. I can't get behind Denzel Ward though, because I think that's the difference.
I'm not a huge Ward fan. I just wasn't
really
a huge fan when he was coming out. I don't know. He seems a little bit.
He was smaller. He's
undersized, and that was.
He could play in the slot. He could play on the outside. He created a bunch of turnovers, and he could tackle. I really didn't feel like there was a weakness outside of him not being 6'1" and 205 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's flavors. It's ice cream flavors. Okay. These are all very close, very good corners. So if I'm ranking them, by my personal preference, that's how I'd rank them. But honestly, like, they're all very close. Like I certainly not poo-pooing any of them. I think especially for the Cowboys, I would prefer Okudah or Surtain than Ward. But I think if you're just generally drafting them for a generic team that doesn't have like a specific scheme. Yeah, I think Ward could potentially be a more versatile player because he can play inside, outside.
That would be my thing right now. If we're talking specifically about the Cowboys and Dan Quinn's scheme, I think Surtain's a better fit. I don't even think there's any question about it. But if you're playing man and zone and you want a guy that can travel with, the best receiver and that can match up with guys in the slot, I think it is Denzel Ward.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.